Okay. Hi, everybody. Welcome to Phil and Dave's Excellent Adventures. Just Dave here. Today, I'm talking about the movie You People. This is going to be a spoiler review, so if you have not seen the movie and you are concerned about spoilers, I would suggest you go and watch the movie first before you watch this review. So, You People is a movie directed by Kenya Barris in his directorial debut, written by Kenya Barris and Jonah Hill. It's sort of a loose remake of Guess Who's Coming to Dinner. So as far as what I liked about the movie, overall, I thought the cast was really good. Eddie Murphy, always good. It's good to see him acting again and in movies again. Jonah Hill, I'm a fan of Jonah Hill. I think he's funny, and I like most of what he does. Julia Louis-Dreyfus is, of course, always great. I've been a fan of her since Seinfeld and Veep, of course, the great show. And yeah, she's always good. Nia Long was in here as Eddie Murphy's wife, also very good, as the main character's mother. I suppose Lauren London, of course, plays Amira, who is the Jonah Hill's love interest. Sam Jay as his friend. I liked her as well, as Mo. Dion Cole was in here as Uncle Demetrius. He's always funny. I know him from Blackish mostly, but yeah, he's always good. It was good to see him in this. He does the Old Spice commercials too, of course. And Mike Epps was in here as Uncle EJ, and he had some really funny parts too. I really liked him. I'm a Mike Epps fan, so yeah. I really like the opening scene. They start talking about Obama. It's Jonah Hill's character Ezra, I think is his name. Was that something like that? And yeah, Ezra and his friend Mo are talking about Obama. They're just kind of riffing and joking around about, what if Obama did drugs or did this kind of stuff. And yeah, it was pretty funny. It had me laughing out loud. It was a good way to open the movie because I went into it with, I guess, somewhat middling expectations, and it opens up with I'm laughing out loud at this pretty funny stuff, and I'm like, okay, hey, you know what? Maybe I'm in for something good here. Yeah. I did like the sort of way that the two of them meet, this kind of meet cute situation where he thinks she's his Uber driver, and then she gets mad and assumes he's being racist, and he's like, no, look, and you saw it in the trailer, but yeah, it was funny. I liked it. It was interesting and believable, I think. I like most of the music in this movie. I didn't like the opening song that they used for the sort of when they're doing their DJ thing. And so I'm like, okay, you know what? I don't generally listen to a lot of hip hop or rap music and stuff. So I'm like, I'm probably not going to like a lot of the music. But surprisingly to me, I like a lot of the music that they use in the movie, particularly the song "Stay High." They used that a couple times in here. I think once the Childish Gambino version and once the original Brittany Howard version. But yeah, great song. I loved it. A lot of good stuff like that. A lot of good R&B, a lot of older stuff. And a lot of stuff that I really liked. So I don't know, maybe my musical taste is changing. I'm opening up a bit, or it was just good music. I liked it. I like the sort of beginning of their romance, sort of showing how they got together and them kind of flirting and deciding that they were a couple, and all of that stuff was really cute and it was nice. And I liked it. And even like the way that he proposed to her and everything, I thought that was really nice. And I thought the two of them had pretty good chemistry together. I believed them as a couple. I'm like, yeah, okay, absolutely. They make sense together. And I really like Nia Long's character, I think, in particular, just because she kind of went along with Eddie Murphy, who was sort of aggressive and but she also was sort of nice and tried to kind of see the other side. And there's a part in particular where Amira's character confronts Julia Louis-Dreyfus about the way that she treats her, and she's totally right, actually. But then Nia Long comes to check up on her daughter, and she's like, "Are you okay?" And her daughter goes, "I don't know," and she walks away. And then she asks Julia Louis-Dreyfus, like, "Are you okay?" And I really like that. It was just a nice little moment of like, "Hey, I don't know if I would have done that if someone was yelling at my daughter. I don't know if I would have cared to check on them, but she did, and that was nice. That was a nice moment. I like that." As far as what I disliked about, and overall too, I should mention, the movie was funny. A lot of the comedy worked. Like I said, the opening scene was funny. Mike Epps had some really good moments in there. Dion Cole had some good stuff. So overall, the movie was pretty funny. There's a lot of good laugh out loud kind of moments that I don't know. It's hard to do comedy these days. It's hard to find good comedy. So I appreciate that. As far as what I disliked about it though, I didn't necessarily like the introduction we got to Amira, because with Ezra, we get this nice introduction with him and his friend. We get to kind of see what he likes and what his interests are, and we get to learn a little bit about him and his goals, and see his kind of job and the way he interacts with his boss, which is also pretty funny. And then, whereas with Amira, our introduction to her is basically she just broke up with a guy who didn't, see her, and that's really all we know. And so the fact that we are introduced to her dependent on some like a guy without really showing us more, and we do eventually learn more about her background, but I just thought comparatively it seemed odd that we get this whole prolonged kind of interesting and funny sequence with Jonah Hill's Ezra, but then with her it's just like, oh, I just broke up with my boyfriend. That's all you need to know. So it would have been nice to see a little bit more with her character. The movie itself did seem to also struggle with sort of, is it a romantic comedy or is it like a social commentary movie? And it kind of tried to be both. And I feel like if it would have stuck to one or the other, it would have been more successful, because trying to do both, it kind of doesn't really succeed at either. There's the dinner that they initially had with Ezra's parents with Julia Louis-Dreyfus and David Duchovny. There was some kind of funny stuff there, but I feel like the way that it escalated was a little too quick for me, because it just goes from all of a sudden, she immediately starts talking about BLM. And I'm sure that happens and I'm sure it's realistic, but I would have appreciated a little bit more of a build up to that, where maybe they did get along and everything was okay. And they did kind of do that, but it seemed a little truncated, and I would have liked it expanded a little more, just to seem a little more realistic. Again, I realize it's a comedy, you're doing stuff for comedic effect, but I would have liked it to feel a little more organic, I suppose. There's these toasts they do at the wedding, or when they're at the reception for the wedding, I guess. And some of them are pretty funny, but a lot of it seemed improvised, and a lot of it, like, they would say something and then there was no reaction from the people around them. So it was this sort of odd, like, clearly what they did, they just set up a camera and just kind of had people riff and just do little improv bits. Kind of reminded me of the thing that Kevin Smith did in Clerks 3 recently, which I also didn't really care for. I'm sure it's fun for them to go up and like, haha, let's do some funny stuff. And there were a couple funny things, but the way that they shot it and the way that we didn't really see any reaction from the people around them or anything like that just made it seem like you were just doing little bits. I did have an issue too with Jonah Hill's character, where at first, I liked him. He seemed like a nice, interesting kind of guy. But then he, throughout the movie, just kind of reveals that he's a pathological liar. So there's some stuff where he's kind of lying, or maybe he's intentionally not really wanting to get into it. So like when, for example, when Eddie Murphy talks about Louis Farrakhan and he's like, what do you like about him? And he kind of struggles with what to say. Now, it's possible that he knows a lot about Louis Farrakhan and was just uncomfortable and didn't exactly know how to put his thoughts into words, which I assume is what they were trying to say. But it also kind of reads as if he doesn't really know about Louis Farrakhan, that his sort of knowledge of Black culture and that world is limited to music and sneakers. And if that's the case, then I don't know. And then there's this whole thing where he lies about the ring that he gives his wife, and he says it was a Holocaust ring from his grandma. And even she's like, wait, the math doesn't add up. And he kind of makes a joke about it, and then they dismiss it. And then it's never brought up again. It's never addressed again. And I assume that was going to be a plot point later on. She would realize he lied about it, and she would be like, but no, it just whatever. And so I guess that was done for comedy. Okay. Aha, it's funny. He lied to his wife, but like, I don't know. I never liked it, especially when a relationship is starting off on a lie. I'm like, well, it's okay. I don't have a lot of hope for that relationship. It reminds me of like an episode of King of Queens or something, where he's always lying to his wife, and it's like, okay. And again, I realize it's a comedy, but it would have been nice if they would have addressed that, or if something else would have come from that. And yeah, they really didn't. And there's definitely a couple of times where it seems like he just is kind of just lying and just making stuff up. And so yeah, I would have liked that, or even to have them address it a little bit more. Someone would say like, hey, you seem like you act like you know about this, but you really don't. And then maybe him to go, I do, but I'm uncomfortable with doing it. Or him to realize, yeah, you're right, I don't. I just like the sneakers and the shoes, and maybe I should take some more time to learn about, Louis Farrakhan or Marcus Garvey or, whoever, Langston Hughes. But it doesn't. So I don't know. That just seemed a little weird to me. I didn't really care for most of the relationship drama between them. I know it had to be there. I understand why it was there, but whenever that was kind of happening, I didn't like it as much. I guess I would have appreciated it more if they were more sure about their relationship and it was more the people around them reacting, which I thought was sort of the point. But then it does get a little muddled, because then they allow the people around them to sort of break up their relationship. And so, yeah, I guess I just didn't really like that. I wish they would have done it. I wish they just wouldn't have done it that way, I guess. And a lot of the stuff is just a bit too over the top. Like I said, Julia Louis-Dreyfus is going immediately into, Black Lives Matter. And then Eddie Murphy's character, not understanding why people might have a problem with some of the stuff Louis Farrakhan has said, because he definitely said some very racist and very ignorant things, including that only white people can be racist. And of course, a lot of stuff about Jewish people as well. So yeah, it seems like that's something that that could have been addressed. And I guess later they do sort of reveal that Eddie Murphy was intentionally sort of giving him a hard time and being like that. But I don't know. I guess a little bit more subtlety would have been appreciated there. A movie is too long. As soon as I went to play it, I saw it was an hour and 58 minutes, and I'm like, that's too long. That's too long for a comedy. I don't mind if Avatar is 3.5 hours long because it's supposed to be a big epic movie, and that's fine. And I also know if I get up to pee at some point, I'm not going to miss much. Whereas with a comedy, I want it to be an hour and a half. I want a nice tight comedy. I wanted to leave you wanting more. And with this one, it just seemed like they left a little bit too much in. It's a little too bloated, and if they would have really cut down a lot of it, they would have trimmed it down a little bit, the movie could have been good because there were a lot of funny moments in there. There's a part at the end, the other issue, my biggest issue, I suppose, was the ending, because Ezra Miller's mom, or Ezra Miller, Jonah Hill, his character's mom, convinces his mom, gets him to go take him to a shoe store, telling him a story that her friend's son bought her shoes, so now she wants to buy shoes. Then they run into Amira and Eddie Murphy there, and Eddie Murphy says, "I don't know what I told you to get you here." I mean, that just seemed like you couldn't even come up with an excuse. I mean, like you couldn't even. That just seems like very lazy writing, or almost like, did they just come up with this idea like on the spot the last day? They were like, "Oh, we got, I don't know, just be like, I don't know what I told you to get you here." Yes, you do know what you told her to get her there. What, do you have amnesia? Do you have Alzheimer's? I don't understand how that works at all. So that was just it stuck out to me as just like bad writing, where you could very, very easily come up with a reason like, "Oh my God, Dad, what's wrong? You said you were having a heart attack," which, okay, maybe that's a little too much, but still, there's a lot of, you could have come up with 1,000 reasons. You're a professional writer. This is your job. Come up with a better reason than, "I don't know what I said to get you here." And also then the fact that they got them together under false pretense. Again, more lying, which I realize this happens with movies. And I probably wasn't as sensitive about this back in the 80s and stuff. A lot of those movies were very questionable. But I guess now in 2022, and this is why comedy is more difficult, I expect a little bit more than, just everyone lying to each other all the time or misunderstanding each other. Like, Three's Company is great, but, let's do something different here. And then so they lie to him to get him together. And then they're like, "Hey, you guys are together now. Let's have the wedding ceremony," which, again, like, these people aren't going to talk and discuss it at all because you all know exactly what happened and you all know it was your fault. And so, once you say, "Hey, this is our fault and we're wrong," then they're just going to want to get married again. There could have been other stuff going on that you don't know about. You have no idea. So I don't know, just stuff like that seemed a little too, they're trying to tie a bow in it, but seemed a little too convenient, I suppose. So other than that, movie is directed by Kenya Barris. This is his first movie. He's mostly known for doing Blackish and Mixedish and Grownish and all of those shows. For whatever reason, I thought Kenya Barris was a woman until now. I don't know why. Kenya is the name of a country, I guess, but for whatever reason, the name sounded female to me, or because Mixedish I had heard was about like somewhat autobiographical, so I assumed that the rainbow character was sort of him, and that he was a woman. So that's just on me, I suppose. But I guess he's also working on the White Men Can't Jump remake that the guys who directed House Party, I think, are also working on, or the guys who wrote House Party are working on. I don't remember. And I just read this recently. He apparently also created, or was one of the creators of, America's Next Top Model. Okay, interesting, cool, good for him, I guess. The movie was written by Kenya Barris and Jonah Hill. It's sort of a loose remake on the 1967 movie Guess Who's Coming to Dinner, which was already remade in 2005 with Ashton Kutcher, Zoe Saldana, and Bernie Mac. And I will say that movie was received about as well as this movie is. And they did sort of the same thing in both of these movies, where they sort of switched. Whereas in Guess Who's Coming to Dinner, it's a white woman who's got a black boyfriend. In both of these, it's been a white guy with a black girlfriend. And I understand why you would make the switch, especially in 2005, that made sense. But I would almost argue nowadays you don't need to switch. The original 1967 story, it could be just as true today as it was back then. And I guess it's sort of what Get Out was kind of like that in some ways too. It had a similar kind of premise. But yeah, racism still exists. There are still a lot of families that, pretend like they're okay with, their daughter marrying a black guy, but might not be. Or you could have done it with a same race or same sex couple rather. Could have been more interesting. I don't know. Other than that, movie's got a lot of good cameos. Anthony Anderson shows up for one line, I think, where he calls him like a melanin challenged or something. Matt Walsh is in here briefly as the boss, maybe a little more than a cameo, but he was actually funny. I liked him a lot. And he's, of course, in Veep. So, he works with Julia Louis-Dreyfus. Rhea Perlman's in here briefly, which is great too. Elliot Gould, again, quick little cameo. Rob Hubble and Nelson Franklin were in here as the two guys who went to Harvard and thought that Amira went to Harvard. She went to Howard. Kind of a funny joke. And there's Howard stuff in Blackish too. So I assume Kenya Barris probably went to Howard. We had Hal Linden in here, which I honestly didn't know Hal Linden was still alive. But hey, good for him. I didn't even recognize him actually, so I'll have to watch it, or I'll have to figure out where he was. Probably won't watch it again. Andrew Schultz is in here, sort of funny as the guy who stormed the Capitol on January 6th. I almost wonder if he's sort of making fun of the one guy from Bob's Burgers who did that. I forget his name. And then Felipe Esparza as the Coke guy was kind of cool. I almost was wanting somebody a little bigger, a little more famous for that character, but I like Felipe Esparza. He was on Superstore, and I like that. And then Kenya Barris as the passenger, I thought it was really funny. It's the first time I realized who it was. I just sort of saw this guy, and he has a very funny voice. And I don't know if it's his real voice or if he's doing it to be funny, but yeah, he kind of comes up. He's like, "Can I have my seat?" And then he's like, "Yeah, I killed somebody," and it was just really funny. I don't know, I like that guy. So yeah, that was cool. Other than that, the movie did, like I said before with the stuff, a lot of it did feel kind of improvised, where they were kind of just having fun and riffing, and that can work sometimes, but also it needs to be restrained and reined in, and it needs to be done with a purpose. And I feel like that was it. And so, like I sort of said before, the movie is funny. There are some good, funny parts to it. And I think even if you were to take some clips out of context and watch them, you'd be like, hey, it looks like a good movie. But overall, the movie's just a little too long and just a little unsure of what it wants to do. And so I think that's my main issue with it. This is a movie on Rotten Tomatoes, though, where the critics and the audience are pretty close. The critics are 45, audience is 42. I personally think I actually like it a little bit more than most people, but it's still not great. I'm going to give it a 6 out of 10 for my score on this one. But if you saw the movie, let me know what you thought of it down in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching. Hope you have a great night, and I will see you here again next week.